The blade trembled in her hand as she realized the truth that would shatter everything she believed. She was meant to bring back her brother, but instead, she resurrected the wrong man. A man erased from every book of the dead, a man who carries death inside him. And now, death follows her, everywhere. Tonight I will tell you a story of shadows and resurrection, of love twisted by fate, of battles against witch hunters, spirits, and the veil itself. A story where each heartbeat could be the last, and where the wrong choice can unravel the world. If you love dark epic romantasia, long immersive storytelling that grips your soul, and stories that feel like you're living every moment with the characters, you're in the right place. Before we step into this world together, make sure to subscribe, not just to support the channel, but so you never miss the next chapter of this saga. Your support lets these stories continue, and it means more than you know. So take a breath, let the shadows gather, and let's begin. The silver eclipse fades, leaving the world bruised in purple hues as the wind tastes of ash. The circle of salt still smokes, its lines broken, the sigils bleeding into the cold earth. Her hands, sticky with dried blood, tremble as she wipes them on her skirts, her breath caught between hope and a rising scream. The man who stands before her is breathing too, and that should bring comfort, but it doesn't, because his eyes are older than the bones buried beneath this graveyard, and when he tilts his head to look at her, she feels as if the moon itself has turned its gaze. The blade trembled in her hand as she realized the truth that would shatter everything she believed. His voice, like iron scraping across stone, echoes inside her as he steps closer. "You called me," he says, as if it is the most natural thing in the world, but the ground itself recoils from his steps, frost crackling where he moves. She remembers her brother's laughter, the warmth of his hand clutching hers before the fire took him, and the way she whispered promises to his ashes. She thought she had brought him back, but the man standing before her has shadows in his smile. The air tastes of burnt rosemary and rain-soaked soil as thunder rumbles in the distance, the scent of petrichor mixing with the metallic tang of fear on her tongue. Her heart hammers against her ribs like a caged bird as she studies the glyphs glowing faintly along his collarbone, symbols she etched in blood, believing they would guide her brother's soul home. His eyes catch the flicker of lantern light, revealing gold hidden beneath darkness, and in that moment, she sees every death he's witnessed reflected there. "I'm sorry," she whispers, tears blurring her vision. His lips curl, not quite a smile, but something softer, sadder. "Don't be," he replies. "You did what you were meant to do." His fingers brush against the edge of the ritual circle, and the salt sizzles beneath his touch, the scent of ozone rising. She dares to meet his gaze. "Who are you?" she asks, the words tearing out of her like a confession. He looks past her, into the night, as if remembering something far away. "Someone who shouldn't exist," he says, as the wind howls, lifting her hair like ghostly fingers. She feels it, death, following him, slipping into the world on silent feet. His eyes meet hers once more, and in that gaze, she sees the promise of something she cannot yet name. He steps closer, the cold of him a promise against her skin, and he whispers, "You called me back. Now you are mine." The lantern flickers out, and the darkness swallows them whole. When the lantern light returns, it reveals the graveyard cloaked in mist, each tombstone a witness to what cannot be undone. Her pulse is a drumbeat in the hush, every sound amplified in the stillness, the rustle of leaves, the distant cry of a raven, the soft crunch of boots on frost-kissed grass. She turns to find him standing beneath the twisted branches of an ancient oak, a raven perched on his outstretched hand, its black feathers ruffling as if it senses something. The bird's head tilts, beady eyes reflecting the moonlight, and for a heartbeat, it caws softly, almost mournfully. Then, as his fingers close around it, the raven goes still, its cry cut short, wings falling limp. A ghostly flicker of light, like a candle's last breath, rises from the bird and disappears into his eyes. She gasps, stumbling backward, the taste of bile rising in her throat. He looks at her with that same quiet sorrow. "Death follows where I walk," he says, and for a moment, she sees something like regret in the lines of his face. The air thickens, carrying the scent of wet earth and something sharp, like iron and old flowers. The cold bites into her skin, sinking deep into her bones as her breath forms clouds in the night air. She wants to scream, but the sound dies in her chest, caught between terror and a fascination she cannot explain. The silence feels heavy, pressing down on her, each heartbeat an echo of something ending. "Who are you really?" she demands, her voice breaking as tears slip down her cheeks, warm against the cold. He turns to her, the dead bird cradled gently in his palm, before he lets it fall to the earth. "I am what your world forgot," he says, stepping toward her, shadows dancing in his wake. She shakes her head, denying him, denying the truth she sees. "I didn't mean to bring you back," she whispers. His lips twitch, a humorless laugh. "But you did." As the raven's body crumbles into ash at his feet, the wind picks up, scattering the remains across the graves. She watches as the ashes swirl around him, forming the shape of a ghostly figure, a woman, her face twisted in sorrow, calling him Prince of Ash, before fading into the night. He closes his eyes, a shudder running through him, and when he opens them, they glow softly in the dark. "You need to run," he says, and she sees the shadows crawling closer through the mist. Dawn is a pale bruise on the horizon as they flee through the forest, the branches clawing at her hair, leaving scratches along her arms that sting with every heartbeat. The forest smells of pine and damp moss, and somewhere, an owl hoots as it returns to its nest. Her feet slip in the mud as she glances back, catching glimpses of torchlight weaving through the trees, the sound of boots and shouted orders echoing behind them. They burst into a clearing, breath steaming in the cold morning air, and for a moment, the world holds its breath with them. Then the first arrow flies, embedding itself in the tree beside her head with a dull thud. She screams, stumbling, but he catches her, his hand cold around her wrist, pulling her behind him. The witch hunters step into the clearing, their faces hidden behind masks painted with runes, each carrying weapons marked with the same sigils she used in the resurrection circle. "Step aside, abomination," one of them snarls, raising a blade that glows faintly blue. He tilts his head, studying them with a calm that terrifies her. "You're wasting your time," he says softly, his voice a promise of violence. "We know what you are." The hunter spits, shifting his stance. "You're the reason the veil is thinning." She feels her stomach twist as she steps forward. "Please don't hurt them," she pleads, her voice raw. His eyes flick to her, and for a moment she sees hesitation. The clearing smells of smoke and frost, the torches crackling as the witch hunters fan out, surrounding them. Her hands shake as she grips the small charm around her neck, the one her brother gave her, the cold metal digging into her skin. Her breath is loud in her ears, mingling with the rustle of the hunters' cloaks as they advance. She feels the man's presence beside her, a cold calm that sinks into her bones, pushing back the fear. Then he moves, faster than she can see, shadows rippling from him as the witch hunters scream. One falls, then another, the darkness swallowing their cries as the torches flicker and die. She falls to her knees, clutching her head as the screams echo in her mind, the taste of iron filling her mouth. When she looks up, the clearing is silent, the hunters gone, the ashes of their bodies drifting through the dawn light. He turns to her, his eyes empty, and says, "They called me the erased one." Smoke curls in the early light as they walk away from the clearing, the air heavy with the scent of burnt flesh and pine. Each step feels like a betrayal, the crunch of ash beneath her boots a reminder of what she has unleashed. The forest around them is silent, as if holding its breath, the shadows stretching long and thin across the frost-bitten ground. They find shelter in the ruins of an old chapel, the stone walls cold and damp, vines creeping through shattered windows. She sits by the broken altar, her hands stained with ash, as he stands near the doorway, watching the gray light filter through the cracks. "Why do they call you the erased one?" she asks, her voice barely more than a breath. He does not turn to her, but she sees the tension in his shoulders, the way his hands curl into fists. "I was erased from the book of the dead," he says finally, his voice hollow, echoing in the empty chapel. Every name has a place there, every soul a line, a record of existence. Mine was burned out. She frowns, confusion mixing with fear. But why? He turns then, his eyes like dying stars. Because I was never meant to die, he says, stepping closer, shadows trailing behind him like smoke. I carry a fragment of death itself, and it hungers. The chapel smells of wet stone and old incense, the cold seeping into her bones as she shivers, pulling her cloak tighter around her shoulders. Her heart beats painfully in her chest as she studies him, the faint glow of the glyphs on his skin pulsing softly, like a second heartbeat. She can almost feel the shadows shifting, reaching for her, brushing against her skin like cold breath. She looks into his eyes, searching for the man beneath the darkness, and for a moment, she sees him, a flicker of warmth, a ghost of who he might have been. "What do you want from me?" she asks, her voice breaking. He kneels before her, taking her hand in his cold grasp and whispers, "You are the last door I need." The shadows rise around them, swallowing the light, as the chapel falls into darkness. The darkness in the chapel lingers, even as dawn brightens, a shadow clinging to her skin like oil. The glyphs on the floor glow faintly as she stirs, feeling the cold press of stone beneath her and the faint vibration of the earth, as if something beneath it is awakening. She remembers the way he looked at her before the shadows rose, the sorrow in his gaze. She finds him sitting near the shattered stained glass, the morning light painting his face in fragments of color, blue, red, gold, like a shattered promise. He holds her gaze as she approaches, something unspoken passing between them, heavy and undeniable. She remembers the warmth of her brother's laughter, the safety of his embrace, and how it feels to lose everything, again and again. "You bound us together," she whispers, and he closes his eyes. "Your blood in the circle, your voice in the dark. It tied us." He opens his eyes, pain flickering across his features. "If I die, you die," he says, each word a dagger. She feels the truth of it, the way her heart stutters in sync with his, the way her breath catches when he is near. "Why me?" she demands. His voice is barely a breath. "Because you are strong enough to hold me." The air smells of burnt herbs and old stone, the taste of fear sharp on her tongue. Her fingers brush against the cold floor, tracing the remnants of the circle she drew, feeling the grooves where her blood dried. Her body aches with exhaustion, but beneath it, a pulsing thread of something else. Power, connection, a bond that hums beneath her skin. She steps closer, close enough to see the shadows shifting in his eyes, close enough to feel the cold of him, the promise of something dark and eternal. "Then we find a way to break it," she says, her voice steady. His lips curl, almost a smile, but it does not reach his eyes. "Or we burn the world trying," he replies. Outside, thunder rumbles in the distance, a storm building on the horizon, and the shadows tremble as if they know what is coming. Rain falls in a thin, persistent drizzle as they leave the chapel behind, the air heavy with the scent of wet earth and moss. Their footsteps are muffled in the mud, and she notices how the world seems to lean away from him, the grass wilting where he steps, the trees groaning as if in pain. She keeps glancing at him, trying to see the man beneath the curse, but all she sees is a shadow draped in flesh. They find shelter in a ruined watchtower, where the wind screams through cracks in the stone. She huddles near a small fire, its meager warmth doing little against the cold that seeps from him. When she closes her eyes, visions flood her mind. Flashes of him standing in a burning hall, screams echoing, a woman's voice shouting his name as flames consume everything. She jerks awake, gasping, the taste of smoke and blood on her tongue. "You see it, don't you?" His voice cuts through the darkness, low and brittle. She lifts her head, meeting his gaze, seeing the flames reflected in his eyes. "I saw a woman. She was calling for you." His expression tightens, and for a moment, she sees the ghost of pain flicker across his face. 3 years ago, when the screams first echoed through your childhood home, I was there, watching, unable to intervene, he says, and she feels the words settle like ice in her chest. The rain tapping on the stone sounds like distant footsteps, like memories she cannot run from. She remembers the fire that took her brother, the way the world smelled of charred wood and sorrow, how she screamed for help that never came. She wonders if monsters are born or made, and which one she is becoming, sitting across from him in the darkness, sharing the same air, the same guilt. Who was she? She asks, and he closes his eyes, rain streaking down his face like tears. Someone I failed, he whispers, his voice breaking, before he stands and walks into the rain, letting it soak him until he is nothing but a shadow against the lightning-struck sky. She watches him, the question burning in her chest. If he failed her, will he fail me too? Lightning cracks open the dawn as she runs, mud sucking at her boots, branches whipping her face as she flees into the forest. Her breath tears through her lungs, the cold air slicing her throat, the scent of pine and rain all around her. Behind her, she feels him, a shadow in the storm, following her without effort, his presence pressing against her like a second heartbeat. She stumbles through a stream, the water icy around her ankles, washing away the blood from a cut on her knee. She thinks of her brother, of freedom, of the life she wants back, and for a moment, she dares to believe she can outrun him. The forest closes in, thick with mist, each tree like a sentinel judging her for what she has done. Her mind echoes with the words, "You are the last door I need. You can't keep me here," she screams into the storm, her voice raw, tears mixing with the rain. He steps from the mist, his hair plastered to his forehead, eyes glowing faintly as he looks at her. "You can't run from what you've become," he says, his voice calm, a storm hidden beneath the words. She backs away, shaking her head, her hands clenched into fists. "You don't own me," she spits, but he only tilts his head, a sad smile ghosting across his lips. The air tastes of ozone and desperation, the thunder rumbling deep like a growl in the earth's throat. Her heart beats so loudly she thinks it will drown out the storm, each pulse a scream of defiance and fear. Her body aches, her muscles trembling, but she cannot stop, cannot surrender to the bond tying them together. The cold of the rain seeps into her bones, but it is nothing compared to the cold in his gaze. He steps forward, and the storm seems to pause, the lightning flickering as if waiting. "Stop running," he says, softer this time, and she sees something in his eyes. Loneliness, ancient and endless. Then the shadows ripple from him, curling around her like cold smoke, and the world goes dark as she feels herself falling into them, her scream swallowed by the storm. She wakes to the scent of old wood and candle smoke, the world blurry as she blinks against the flickering light. Her wrists are bound with cold iron, the chains biting into her skin as she struggles. She is no longer in the forest, but in the remnants of a monastery, the walls carved with runes that hum softly, the air thick with incense and the iron tang of blood. Across the room, he is bound as well, chained to the floor with sigils burning into his skin, smoke rising from the wounds. His eyes are closed, but she can see the pain etched into his face, the tension in his muscles as he fights against the restraints. She feels the bond between them, like a thread pulling at her heart, tightening with every breath he takes. The shadows in the corners seem to watch, waiting. A figure steps forward, robes dark, face shadowed beneath a hood. "You should not have brought him back," the priest says, voice like gravel. She lifts her chin, anger and fear swirling in her chest. "Who are you?" she demands. The priest pulls back the hood, revealing a face lined with age, eyes sharp and weary. "I am the one who tried to destroy him once," he says, looking at the man chained across the room. "And now, you have undone everything." The room smells of dust and old prayers, the candle flames flickering with every breath of wind that slips through the cracks in the stone. Her hands ache from the chains, her shoulders burning as she shifts, trying to find comfort where there is none. She can feel his pain as if it is her own, the bond between them thrumming with shared suffering, shared fate. The priest steps closer, lifting a blade etched with runes, its edge glinting in the candlelight. "You brought back the erased one," he says, his voice shaking with fury and fear. "He is why your brother died." Her breath catches, the world spinning around her as she stares at the man across the room, the man she brought back, the man who might have taken everything from her. The blade rises, and the shadows in the corners begin to move. The blade falls, slicing through the air with a hiss, but the shadows erupt, swallowing the priest's hand, sending the blade clattering to the stone floor. The chains around him shatter as darkness coils around his wrists, freeing him. She feels the bond flare, pain lancing through her as she screams, the shadows tearing through the room like a storm. The priest staggers back, clutching his burned hand, eyes wide with terror. The man rises, shadows dripping from his skin, his eyes glowing like molten gold in the flickering light. She watches, frozen, as he steps toward the priest, every movement a promise of violence. "You don't know what you're doing," the priest gasps, falling to his knees. The man tilts his head, studying him with cold detachment. "And you did?" he replies softly. "Tell me why my brother died," she demands, her voice sharp as glass, cutting through the tension. The priest looks at her, tears in his eyes, shaking his head. "Your brother was a sacrifice," he whispers, the words breaking him. "To keep him contained, to keep the veil sealed." She feels the floor fall away beneath her, the world tilting as the truth crashes down. She turns to the man, her eyes blazing. "Is it true?" she demands. The air smells of blood and burning shadows, the taste of betrayal bitter on her tongue. Her hands shake, the iron cuffs biting into her wrists, but she barely feels the pain as she stares at him. Her heart pounds, every beat an accusation, every breath a demand for answers. The candle flames dance wildly, casting monstrous shadows on the walls as the wind howls through the broken windows. He looks at her, and for a moment, the shadows fade, revealing the man beneath. "I tried to stop it," he says, his voice raw, haunted. "But I was too late." She sees the truth in his eyes, but it brings no comfort, only more questions, more pain. The priest sobs, rocking back and forth, whispering prayers to a God that does not answer. She feels the weight of the truth settle on her shoulders as the shadows gather once more, whispering of what is yet to come. They leave the monastery behind, the priest's prayers echoing in the cold morning air, fading as the shadows swallow him. The road before them is empty, the world hushed, waiting. She walks beside him, the bond between them pulsing with every step, every heartbeat, a reminder of what they are, what they have done, what they have yet to face. They find an abandoned village, the air thick with the scent of smoke and rotting wood, the silence oppressive. She sees the shadows moving at the edges of her vision, flickering in doorways, watching from broken windows. Each step feels heavier, the world darker, as if the sky itself is mourning. She feels the cold of him even without touching, the way the darkness clings to him, growing stronger with each passing hour. "How long do we have?" she asks, her voice soft, brittle. He glances at her, his eyes dark, the glow within them dimming. "Not long," he replies. She swallows, her throat tight, the taste of ash on her tongue. What happens when it's too late? He stops, looking at her with a sadness that feels like the end of all things. "The world breaks," he says simply, and she feels the truth of it deep in her bones. The wind whistles through the empty village, carrying the scent of rain and decay. The ground is littered with fallen leaves, brittle beneath their boots, each step a reminder of what has been lost. Her hands ache with cold, her breath forming clouds that drift away, carrying whispered prayers she cannot bring herself to say aloud. She feels the darkness inside her, a reflection of his, growing stronger with every death, every heartbeat. That night, as she sits by the dying fire, she sees the shadows gather around him, slipping beneath his skin, sinking into his veins like ink in water. His eyes snap open, glowing faintly as he gasps, clutching his chest, the darkness writhing within him. She reaches for him, her hand trembling, as the world holds its breath, waiting to see what he will become. The fire's embers glow like dying stars as she drifts into uneasy sleep, the air thick with the scent of smoke and wet earth. Shadows dance across her eyelids, forming the shapes of things she fears to name. Her brother's smile, the man's burning eyes, the creeping darkness in her veins. In the stillness of dawn, footsteps crunch softly across the cold ground, and the scent of iron drifts on the breeze. She wakes to the sharp crack of a rune igniting, the light blinding as she shields her eyes. The fallen priest, face streaked with dirt and desperation, stands over the man as he sleeps, the rune-carved blade hovering above his chest. The priest's lips move in silent prayer, his eyes glistening with fear and determination. "It ends now," he whispers, tears tracking down his face. "No!" she screams, lunging forward, the bond between her and the man pulling tight, a thread of pain singing through her bones. The priest looks at her, his hand trembling, the blade catching the weak light of dawn. "If he lives, everything dies!" the priest shouts, his voice cracking. She feels the truth in his words, but it does not matter. Her heart knows what it has chosen, even if her mind screams against it. The cold bites into her skin as she tackles the priest, the blade skittering across the stone floor with a screech that echoes like a scream. The scent of sweat, blood, and cold metal fills the air as she wrestles with the priest, his prayers turning into curses. The man stirs, shadows rippling around him as he awakens, his eyes glowing softly, confusion and pain reflected there. The priest shoves her back, reaching for the blade, but shadows lash out, dragging him across the ground, pinning him against a wall. The man stands, breathing hard, darkness swirling around him like a living thing. His gaze meets hers, and in that moment, she sees the question in his eyes, unspoken, but clear. "Why did you save me?" The dawn bleeds into day, cold and pale, as they sit in the ruins of the village, the air heavy with the scent of ash and sorrow. The priest lies bound, eyes closed, whispering prayers she can barely hear, while the man paces, shadows curling around his feet like smoke, each step leaving frost in the dirt. She finds an old book among the wreckage, its pages brittle, covered in symbols she recognizes from the resurrection ritual. She flips through them, her heart pounding as she realizes what they describe. A way to bring her brother back, to call his soul from the veil, but at a price. Each word is a blade carving into her resolve, tearing her between the promise she made and the bond she cannot sever. "There is a way," she says softly, holding the book, her hands shaking. The man stops, turning to her, the shadows pausing with him. "A way to bring him back?" he asks, his voice calm, but she hears the tension beneath. She nods, swallowing hard. "But it will cost you." His eyes darken, and the shadows shiver. "If you choose him, I vanish forever," he says, his voice low, a storm beneath the surface. The wind whispers through the empty village, carrying the scent of rain and old smoke. Her heart pounds, her breath forming soft clouds in the cold air. The weight of the book in her hands feels like a chain, binding her to a promise she made to a ghost. She looks at him, seeing the man, the monster, the shadow, and she wonders which one she loves and which one she fears. She closes the book, meeting his gaze, her decision unspoken, but clear in the trembling of her hands. "Then we do it," she whispers. His eyes close, a shadow of sorrow passing over his face before he nods. In the distance, thunder rumbles, the storm on the horizon drawing closer, as if the world itself is holding its breath. The storm breaks over the village, rain pounding the earth, washing away the ash and blood, but not the sins that stain their hands. Lightning cracks across the sky, illuminating the empty streets as shadows crawl from the darkness, forming shapes that flicker and twist, eyes glowing faintly in the downpour. They come in silence, the witch hunters, cloaked and hooded, weapons glowing with runes as they advance through the rain. Between the lightning flashes, she sees them, spectral figures drifting among the hunters, spirits of the dead drawn by the fragment of death within him, whispering in voices only he can hear. The shadows coil around him, drawn to the power, feeding on it, growing stronger. "They're coming for you," she says, her voice tight, fear a cold knot in her stomach. He nods, his eyes distant, the rain sliding down his face like tears. "They're coming for us," he corrects softly. The priest, still bound, laughs bitterly. "You've brought the end," he spits. She glares at him, clutching the book to her chest, the pages soaked, but the words still burning in her mind. The rain smells of ozone and wet earth, the air thick with the scent of fear and iron. Her hair clings to her face, the cold sinking into her bones as the witch hunters close in, weapons raised. The shadows ripple around him, brushing against her skin like cold breath, whispering promises of power, of death, of eternity. Her heart hammers, each beat a countdown to the inevitable. As the first hunter steps forward, lightning strikes, illuminating the moment he kisses her, the shadows flaring around them, the world pausing as their lips meet. "Forgive me," he whispers. And then the darkness explodes outward, swallowing the hunters, the village, and her scream as the storm roars. The storm rages, lightning tearing the sky as shadows clash with the hunters, screams echoing through the ruins. She stands in the center of a circle carved into the mud, the book open before her, the rain smearing the ink, but not the words carved into her memory. Her hands bleed as she cuts her palm, the blood mixing with the rain, dripping onto the symbols etched in the earth. He stands across from her, shadows swirling around him, eyes glowing like molten gold, the fragment of death pulsing within him, drawing the spirits closer. The priest, freed, chants the counter-ritual, trying to hold back the veil as it tears open above them, the sky splitting, shadows pouring through. Her brother's face flickers in the rift, eyes wide, reaching for her, calling her name in a voice like wind through leaves. "Don't stop," he says, his voice shaking, shadows tearing at him, ripping pieces away. "No matter what you see, don't stop." Tears stream down her face, mixing with the rain, the blood, the mud. "I can't lose you," she sobs, the words breaking. He smiles, a ghost of warmth, even as the darkness devours him. "You already did," he whispers, stepping back into the shadows. The ground shakes, the scent of lightning and blood filling the air, the cold of the rain numbing her skin. She feels the shadows pulling at her, slipping beneath her skin, filling her veins with cold fire. Her brother's hand is so close, just beyond the veil, the light of him burning against the darkness, calling to her, begging her to finish what she started. She screams, pouring everything she has into the final words of the ritual as the shadows collapse inward, the veil tearing open, swallowing the man whole. Her brother's hand clasps hers, warm and real, pulling her back as the darkness closes, leaving only silence, the storm breaking, the rain washing the blood from her hands as she collapses. Silence. The storm is gone, leaving the world washed clean, the scent of rain and earth heavy in the air. She lies in the mud, the book closed beside her, the symbols on the ground glowing faintly before fading, leaving only the scent of burnt ozone and wet leaves. She opens her eyes, seeing her brother kneeling beside her, his eyes wide, tears on his face. "Is it really you?" she asks, her voice hoarse, weak. He nods, pulling her into his arms, warm, alive, everything she has fought for, everything she has lost and found again. She sobs into his shoulder, clutching him, feeling the bond that once tied her to the man gone, leaving a hollow ache in its place. She thinks of the shadows, of the way he looked at her before the end, and the promise in his eyes. "He's gone," her brother whispers, his voice breaking, and she nods, unable to speak. "But I can still feel him," he says, pulling back to look at her, fear flickering in his gaze. She swallows, the taste of salt and rain on her lips, the emptiness in her chest a wound that will never heal. "He's still here," she whispers, touching her chest, feeling the faintest echo of a heartbeat that is not her own. The air smells of rain and hope, but beneath it, a faint scent of smoke and something colder, older. The world feels fragile, as if one breath could shatter it, as if the silence is holding back something waiting to break free. Her heart beats softly, each pulse a reminder of what she has lost, and what she has saved, and what still waits in the dark. As they stand, ready to leave the ruins behind, her shadow flickers in the dawn light, moving when she does not, its eyes glowing softly, watching, waiting. She hears his voice, a whisper carried on the wind, soft, gentle, eternal. "You called me back. I will always find you." She walks through a field of wildflowers, the dawn painting the world in colors she thought she would never see again. Her brother's laughter drifts on the breeze, and for a moment, she allows herself to believe in peace. But when she looks into the water of a still pond, she sees his eyes watching her through her reflection, a promise unbroken. "This is not the end," she whispers to herself, the wind carrying her words into the dawn, where shadows still wait, patient and eternal.